Introduce yourself to everyone here.
Hello here. My name is Professor Zoom, Eobar Thon, or really just Professor Nobody. I am an INTP Social 6, 614 Trifix, LII, normalizing, reserved, limbic, organized, egotistic, inquisitive, FFEV, melancholic dominant, and introverted thinking with sensing.
As you guys can tell, this guy knows what he's talking about. First question: the passion of six. Like, is it as simple as just being afraid? How does that manifest? What is the passion of six core really about?
Well, in all honesty, though, I think that the six's fear, the passion of fear, is more like on the spectrum because the six's fear goes straight into ambiguity, the very art of ambiguity that six faces throughout their daily lives. And since the six is so ambiguous, there would be many ways that they take it out on. For instance, the conservation six would take out their ambiguity in a way that they're open about it. They're more likely to express it because they want to protect themselves from the external world, so they use ambiguity as a coping mechanism through projecting. And since a common fear of a six is fear itself, this fear is commonly gone into through the art of thinking. Rationality is what fear is made out of, even irrationality at times.
Generally speaking, at its core, sixes are a very rational and quite logical type, right?
For the most part, well, if you're thinking of a social six, then very much so. But sexual six is less likely to appear rational, and they're more likely to appear more impulsive, more irrational, because they are trying to fight, because they're trying to counter fear. Not just sexual sixes in general, but counterphobic sixes in general, not just sexual, because any subtype of six can be counterphobic.
Even a self-preservation six could have kind of counterphobic predisposition?
In theory, yes, because chances there is always this one thing that they call courage. The one very thing that sixes strive towards is courage.
More questions for you. More questions for you. Slow down, man. More questions. Don't worry, you'll be talking. You'll be talking. How did you figure out you were a 6 core and not like a 5 core? Because obviously many would probably type you a 5 core.
Well, for one, I realized I was actually, it was not really just anxiety. Well, not just the OCD traits either, but also because I'm so very delved into logic itself that it just seems so stereotypically obvious that'd be that people think of it as a 5. It's mainly because I realized how rigid I really am compared to a 5. And people think that 5s are so logically rigid, especially social 5s, but in truth, they're not that rigid. They're irrational because you mainly find the introverted intuition type with the social 5. Meanwhile, the social 6, I figured out that instead of me being just this one irrational person, I turned out to be a very irrational person, very conscious of fear, yet I don't really show fear. In fact, I just look at life in a very deadpan way.
You said 5s are irrational. What does that mean? How should people take what you say about 5s?
When you think of irrational, I'm talking about not really focusing much on morality. I'm thinking of this in Carl Jung's terms of rationality and irrationality.
Like, how does this rigidity manifest in you? How does it show up in your either daily life or your approach to typology or logical matters?
It mainly shows in my approach to typology because in my approach to typology, I rarely change my votes unless I view unless I view some kind of very simple mistake in my typology reasoning. Otherwise, though, I view my typing as the absolute truth, especially when I go on typing pages where the characters are so badly mistyped that they could not be saved.
Right. How does this correspond with your NE creative, though?
Well, I tend to be highly abstract in a way. I tend to just commonly be very introspective, but also gain very abstract data from the external world to support it based on. It's like how I use typology.
I often obviously kind of associated LIIs with like their NE creative as very open, very open and not really people who tend to lean towards logical rigidity, in their kind of ideologies and stuff. But it's not true, right? Like an LII, clearly you are one, and LII is SO6 is very typical typing. Clearly, they can be extremely rigid with what they think and how they think things should be in the logical realm.
I can definitely see why people think that LEIs are, especially LII and E subtype, and the creative subtype in DC and H, if you're a Model G user. And so if you're a Model G user, yeah, LII's social 6 is very, very obviously normalizing or dominant.
Okay.
And those two types are more likely to be the TI subtypes of the LII because since they're the normalizing, it is considered as being balanced stable. Balanced stable creates a consistent person with a very consistent tone, very consistent amount of low energy. While dominant creates somebody with consistently high energy. Dominant is more pragmatic, while normalizing is way more, well, I should say, ideological or logic-based, relationship-based.
The difference between 5 and 6. Everyone asks me this. What is the difference?
Okay, so I'm going to use this metaphor with a box. Think of a 5 as being a bit outside of the box, while think of the 6 as being the box itself. The box being logical constraints, limits, reason, order,
Rules, blah 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 blah, yeah.
affirmative. Well, a 5 is a bit outside of the box. They are more intuitive in nature, more out of it, as I say, more out of reality that we see it as.
Would you say that 5s can have very weird takes maybe or conclusions about stuff, maybe not based on like just strict logical laws? Sometimes they kind of might seem like it came out of nowhere.
Yes, because I mainly associate the core 5 with the introvert intuitive in psychological types. And the introvert intuitive type doesn't really focus on logical rules, but rather focuses on internal visions made from the subconscious, collective unconscious, as they say. It is a very visionary person who tends to have some hypochondriac tendencies. They tend to be highly artistic in nature. They tend to be very detached from reality, just like the introverted sensation type. And speaking of which, I can definitely see the introverted sensation type as being a 5 as well, just only the conservation subtype.
What about traits like detachment and the withdrawing quality? Like, how do 5s compare with 6s? Because you're a 6 and you're a pretty introverted guy. So, what are the differences?
Okay, so while 5s are way more emotionally detached, they're also way more detached. They're also just more detached from reality as a whole, not just from emotion in general.
Right.
While a 6 is literally an attachment type, they are always attached to something at least, either it being groups of people, their strength, or reason itself. Abstraction, as they say.
Yes, in your
Even though,
case.
and even though 5s are abstract, they're not necessarily attached to it. It's just it's just subconscious. While a 6 is consciously abstract.
Do you have any? So this is a good one. Do you have any examples of fictional characters or people even that are typed as 5 cores but are actually 6s? Because I think that would be helpful to people.
I think on Personality Database, I find so many smart anime characters being
Yes.
typed as 5s, INTJ 5s, INTP 5s.
Yes.
For instance, Nate Rivers, Makise Korusu,
Yes.
also another one. I think Kyoko Kirigiri. They're all typed as 5s. Even though, and Nears is especially curious because even though he's my profile picture,
Yes.
yeah, he's typed as an SP/XX5. Like, I don't know I kind of don't understand what kind of substances these users are on, because it's a pain in the rear end that these
Yeah.
people are typing everybody as 5s, even though they're smart. Caruso Makase especially is stressful because I've actually made an argument for her being a social 6 before. Also,
Yeah.
I could also make an argument about 1s being mistyped as 6 is being mistyped as 1s.
That happens quite often, right? SO6s,
Yes.
especially in the case of LSIs, because with LII that's probably not going to happen as much. But LSI 6, SO6 does lean into this rigidity and ideology, so I could see why. So how would you differentiate between a 6 and a 1 in this case?
Well, when I think of a 6 and a 1, I would think of a 1 as being, well, I hate to delve into mental disorders, but a 1 would be more like obsessive compulsive personality
OCPD.
disorder.
Yeah, OCPD. Yeah.
While a 6 will be more like just general OCD in general, because OCD in general, OCPD is described as a conscientious disorder, one that is more, even though it's anxiety induced,
Right.
more like a disorder. It's more like a disorder that
Perfectionistic.
perfectionistic. You're more actively perfectionistic. You're assertive. You're controlling. You want control over the
Right.
external world. While OCD, it's more fear oriented itself. Like it's way more head triad than OCPD, and also, the OCPD is ego dystonic.
It aligns with their thoughts and feelings. They think they're okay.
Yes, they definitely think they're
Right.
okay, which means that they think that they are perfect like 1s. While OCD is ego syntonic, which means that they
Yes.
fear it.
There's
They want to
this
stop.
stress. They want
As
it
somebody,
to. Yep. Yep.
as somebody who suffers from OCD myself, yes, I cannot really stop it, even though I cannot really stop it because it's something that always intrudes my brain. Biting my fingers is one way you could consider OCD.
So and with OCPD, it's completely different, right? In this case, because it's way more. It comes from the gut almost. They have this inherent desire for perfection and control over the environment, they don't question it. That's how it should be, and it's everyone else's fault, which is obviously at the most unhealthy. That's how one's manifest, right? So there's a predisposition towards that condition.
Yes. And one example of one of those "it's not my fault" scenes is Judge Claude Frollo. "To the Hell" is the one song known as "Hellfire" by Judge from in Hunchback of Notre Dame. Judge Claude Frollo is basically singing about how his
Mm-hmm.
lust is not his fault. And then he thinks about burning Esmeralda to the stake because of his lust. That he tries to hide so openly.
What about the attitude to truth? Because both are truth seekers, right? I'm not sure if I would call it one truth seeker, but what is their approach to truth? 1 and 6.
The one's truth is way more instinctual oriented, while the six seeks truth through logic and reason itself because of their adherence to reason. It is there because yes, the six has a lot of faith according to Ishizo's Enneagram. In fact, it is one of their main parts of their trait. It's one of the main parts of them in terms of Ishizo's because
Mm-hmm.
according to Ishizo himself, the six
Mm-hmm.
might have. I think I forgot something. But yes, faith is a huge part of a six, and they have faith on
Fate, right.
and they hold their faith on reason so much
Right,
that they mainly seek the truth through reason itself. It's like Sherlock Holmes from the original book,
right.
who everybody types as a 5.
Yeah, I know. But that's
It's
because it's the fate. You guys fives are sixes have the same fate as eights many times. You know, you have those weird stereotypes from people. They associate intelligence. He gathers knowledge, he studies, or he's very logical and he's introverted. He must be a 5 core.
yeah, Sherlock Holmes is a very clear social 6. It's just that people in Person9 database are too stupid to see it. If Sherlock Holmes was a 5, then why would he rely on the very concept of logic itself so much to solve his cases?
Do you know like there's a character from True Detective, Rustin Cole? Do you know him?
I haven't watched True Detective yet,
Yeah.
but I know about his character.
Yeah, I do think that's an example of a 5 core. Like this guy does not adhere to like reason or logic. I mean, yes, he's a great detective, but there's so much of what he does in this weird, almost non like just weird symbols and patterns and just this guy has such a weird internal world that no, I wouldn't look at him and mistype him as a fucking 6 scorer, you know. In his case, it's pretty obvious, but that is how fives are. That's how they are. They're not. He's not some super logical guy. I'm a Sherlock Holmes. I solve cases with logic. Not at all, you know. But you should definitely see that movie because that TV show because it's really really good.
And another thing,
Yeah.
one hobby that people think is 5ish but it's actually very 6ish is the idea is true crime and science as well, because
Right.
cases of
Right.
people most likely to be scientists is painfully mistyped as a 5 core.
Again, automatic vote 5 core.
It's so painful that it makes me want to retype as an LSI. Just kidding.
Right.
But yes, but yes, science itself relies on the holy idea of holy faith. They definitely seek
Yeah.
security from the external world in the fact that their science is going to solve external problems.
Right. They adhere to it
That
completely, constantly adhere to it, and they need explanations for everything. Everything has to be measured. Everything has to be reasoned. Everything there's always an equation for everything. That's literally adhering to to logic, to reason, and to very clear logical laws. So I mean, it's funny.
precisely. And another character that I can find that's actually a 5 is El Lolliot from Death Note.
The geeks who watch this video will know this. Now, I'm no anime fan, like as people probably guessed, but all the people who probably watch and they will know all of those references, so that's gonna be very helpful.
Well, for one, El Lolliot is not really determined. He's not really a person who's so oriented on reason as he is really just subconsciously intuitive. He's more or
Yes.
less. In fact, he guessed that Light Yagami was Kira based on such little evidence and logic.
Right.
Even though he's still a great thinker,
Yes.
he's not like Nier who chose to go into the Kira case because he wants to serve L posthumously. So yes, it's kind of stupid how people mistype 5s and 6s because
Happens all the time.
because Near and L are perfect examples of this. Near is a 6,
Mm-hmm.
L is a 5. Case closed.
Case closed, guys. So I'm gonna like even make a timestamp for this, so all the Death Notes individuals will see. What the fuck? I'm gonna. Okay.
Oh, and yes, and I think that 5s can be mistyped as counterphobic. I think that sexual 6s can be mistyped as 5s.
Sorry, dude. I sneezed, dude. Yeah, my bad.
I do think I do think that sexual 6s can be mistyped as 5s. Even though I don't really see too many examples of this, it's definitely a possibility because unlike what most people think about the sexual 6 as it being a mini 8,
I
oh a
know.
mini
I
8,
know. Yes. Let's debunk this. Okay. Go ahead. Go
but
ahead.
in reality, the sexual 6 is the most likely type to achieve its virtue of courage, meaning that they instead of dealing with external intellectual matters like a social 6 external abstraction, well, not even external internal systems that guide them, they don't use those systems to guide them. Rather they create their own intellectual formula. Rather they create their own subjective intellectual formulas as a means of spiting the authority.
So they're still intellectual typed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. Because why? Yes, because the people describing them as miniature eights don't know that they're actually head types. Either they do, and they either they don't, or they do, and
Yes.
they just don't care about that. Which arguably is just as illogical as thinking that a 6 is a miniature 8.
So basically, this is a heads up for everyone. Don't go around typing the craziest guy who doesn't think. X in the moment is an impulsive as a six score. Like it's a ridiculous typing. In fact, if you do you know Funky and MBTI, Funky MBTI?
I don't really know them too well, or
But
at least I.
it's they have a little blog. I think on Tumblr or something they have MBTI typings, very like years of typings, and she typed a character Jake Sully from the movie Avatar. Now Jake Sully, if you look at him as a character in the first movie and the second, you can see a great deal of extroverted sensation. And again, completely immersed in intangible reality, completely is immersed in movement, instincts, and being completely fearless, right? Like no fear, complete acceptance to life. And this chick typed him as a six score because you know why? Because he joined a clan, because he was in a group. He cared for the group and he cared about loyalty to this group. So he must have been a six. I mean, that's the most extreme level of the mistype because he's so clearly not a head type. It's ridiculous, but it's a great example of what you're saying.
And the only thing I really get out of that group type, he was
Yeah,
in a group, so he must be a
yeah,
6. Is just It's just pure beta values.
that's what yeah, but
And
SO8. That's I mean, what do they expect? Social aids do operate within groups. Yes, they lead groups, but that's how it works. They would never type someone an S6 just because they care about groups, which is, by the way, a myth created by those blogs, by people. Whenever you Google some shit on Google on Enneagram 6, that's what they care about. They want to rely on a group. They care about the group, and that's what the fuck this is. Or they care about loyalty. Eights don't care about loyalty. It's stupid shit, man.
if 8s don't care about loyalty, then why are so many 8s typed as SLEs? Literal beta type.
Funny, right? I mean, beta types
Yeah.
known for collectivistic values, orientation to group dynamics, and loyalty. Us against them as a group. That's I mean that's the Nestle typing. So it's a fucking joke, man. With SP6, we probably don't get as many mistypes other than what? Many okay, so with SP6, we think they're like they're the true they're the stereotype two cores, right? Like
Or 9
oh
cores.
helpful, nice. Well must be two. In reality SP6. Or as you said, SO9.
Or even sexual 9.
Section, yeah, because Section 9, right? Passive, nice, friendly. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen it happen all the time, man. I've seen it happen all the time.
And speaking of mistypes, have you ever heard of Big Jack Horner? The one with Destiny?
The guy, the fat guy, the huge fat guy.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
What took you so long, idiot?
yeah, I
He's
remember.
not he's not an SLE.
So what was he? What was he?
He's probably an LIE. Like
Oh,
I don't
okay.
see any beta. I don't. If I'm being honest, I don't see any
Yes.
beta values for them at all. He seems like a gamma, if anything, because if anything, he doesn't care about his own men. Rather, he only uses them for his own
But he
gain.
looks for profit. He looks like constant
Exact.
profit, advancing
Ex-
himself in that way. Yes.
Exactly. It's literally TE. It's literally positivistic TE and model G, and also he's not an 80s. He's conservation 7.
Yeah, SP7 charlatanism. The charlatan. Yeah, always. Oh, fuck, man. That's intense. What are some of the myths of Enneagram 6? Some stereotypes that you've seen? And what are some truths about it that kind of go against those widely accepted bullshits?
So some pretty moronic stereotypes I've seen of these sixes that they are is that they are is that they always seem to have anxiety disorder. Yes, they're always so scared.
Hmm.
They're illogical. Oh, they must be a six then. If they're so illogical,
Yes.
leave feared. Oh, they are traditional. They're a
Yes.
six.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. You have traditionalism. You care about the group, either six core or six fix.
Oh, you believe in God? You're a six core.
Yes.
Even though we have Sheldon Cooper, who's literally mistyped as a five.
Yeah.
Sheldon Cooper is literally the biggest. Sheldon Cooper is a very good example of a live action social six. He's he's a lot like myself. He's a freak. He's literally a geek. He's a nerd. He's a nerd. He literally rides upon science and
You're a
science alone.
sigma male, man. You're a sigma male.
He,
After this interview, you're gonna be a sigma male. Trust me.
he
Trust me.
rejects he rejects God because it goes against science itself. Yes, he's an atheist.
Yeah. What a five core. What the hell, man? Haha. So we have the okay. So any other myths?
Oh yeah, the teddy bear thing as well.
Teddy bear? What do you mean?
The self-preservation chicks being a teddy bear.
Oh, like a
That,
sweet, submissive, breathable wife. You mean? But what about okay? So how do you deal with vulnerability? Because that's what I want to know about. Like your vulnerability, showing your emotions, and stuff like that.
I don't really show my emotions. I barely show my emotions, but when I do, it's usually because I'm just larping at something.
Like what? Like LARPing? Like maybe in a
LARPing,
social setting? You mean?
yes, LARP. Yeah, well, yes, LARPing as Eobarthon. If you don't know about him, oh yes. Oh, speaking of mistyped sixes, Eobarthon is another one of them.
This guy's
Like,
intense. Damn. Listen, man, you're going off fucking topic, man. Your NE is geeking. Like your NE is blasting full fucking force. Let's. I will send it the conversation. Don't you worry. I'll send it the fucking conversation. We were talking about your vulnerability. So your feelings, you don't show them. You said LARPing. LARPing in what way? Like socially? You mean in a social setting? Or what?
yes, and then also acting and LARPing as a sexual one in my own spare time,
Uh, like what? Like this? Like running crusades on people?
or at least imagining it,
Oh
and then
damn!
pretending to be Judge Claude Frollo from the movie,
You're funny,
just
man.
without any sexual lust.
You're funny.
just
You're
for
really funny.
just without any of that need, just without any of the need to get your phallus big because of a gypsy lady.
Man, your brain is very interesting, man. People who watch this interview will certainly have question marks all over the fucking screen. I like that. That's good. Makes people think.
I
So people describe sixes as people who wanna like they will LARP and deny that they're scared or weak about something, and they will kind of put up a certain facade. Do you do this or not really?
I do it pretty commonly actually. It's in fact it's possibly one of the reasons to why I sparred one time.
And broke your screen.
Correct.
I mean, that
Yes,
sounds like a very emotionally charged reaction to me.
yes, because I repressed it for so long.
So that's your tendency, repressing emotions, probably because it's not logical, and there's
Yes.
no reason to for that to like. Come on, there's no place for emotions when you're a logical individual, and that bit you in your ass, and you had a complete like emotional shutdown.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not really forceful, even though I'm very negativistic. So instead I take out this depression on by being negative, and well, being negative and having a very cold face, being negative and having a very straight face about it.
So basically, deadpan
Yeah.
predisposition,
Yes, deadpan pessimism, if you will.
misanthropia, and like kind of thinking shit's bad.
See some sixes, at least some sixes that are type as four logic. especially counterphobic sixes.
Psychosophy, let's go. Okay, Psychosophy.
And so I don't see that as a possibility at all because for one, they're too logically oriented, too ideologically oriented to fit in with the others positive, self negative, fourth logic in general.
Right.
And I think that most sixes are in fact first logic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
At
many
their very
many
at their
argue it's
very
not
least,
possible, right? That they can be anything else. Maybe 3L, I guess. Third logic.
some even argue 2L, but I don't really see that either.
But 2L is so flexible and it is so calm and open with logical matters. Like they love to experiment with logic and stuff. Why would that kind of fit the black and white rigidity of 6 core?
The absolute truth seekers are very much social sixes, 1L. Commonly
Yes.
LFEV, most social sixes are LFEVs, LFVEs, LVFEs, and LVFs.
Psychosophy talk. People, yeah, I'm the only channel speaking about psychosophy, so this psychosophy talk is gonna be helpful. And I've heard many people have this argument on typing characters. Like, why are you typing him as 6? He's literally 4L. So 4L in your eyes is absolutely impossible to be a 6 core.
Yes, especially a social six.
Yes. What about self-preservation 6? How do you view that?
So I think the archetype for the conservation six is probably probably either first or second emotion.
First and second emotion. And where does logic go?
Probably first logic.
So still
Yes, but a more passive one.
more passive, higher emotion. Okay, makes
Yes,
sense.
sometimes 3E, but that's not too often.
Okay, now
Also,
let's. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
never 4F. Never 4F.
People sometimes say FLVE is very fitting for sexual 6. Some people type that as Nate Jacobs, although I probably think he's not one. So, what is your opinion?
It's definitely not as common as LFE. But 3V and 4E is very clear for sexual 6.
It does fit,
I
right? It does fit very
Yes,
well.
1F might work for a sexual 6, but but even that might be a little strange. But at the same time, the sexual 6 does, even though they're intellectual, they still fight fear.
Right.
So they tend to be very bold in nature.
Let's kind of stop the interview now. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if it gets received very well, we can do a part 2 where he teaches a class and you guys all learn something. Anyway, it's very late. It's time to bounce. Ciao. Say any last words to the
I'm
audience?
going.
Not any like long rants like a fucking 50-minute tangent, but something good.
Okay. Please remember to stay informed. Typology users.
So
See you soon as well.
I can't understand anything. Genuinely, it's so deep. I can't understand anything.
Okay, so stay informed. Remember, typology community. Don't
You.
mistype.
Thank you. Because if you do, he's gonna come to your profile and he will call you stupid. Then he's gonna correct you every mistake you've ever made and will make you feel small like the Sigma male he is.
Truth.